The reason I have so many tattoos is because of all these scars I have. We went like this, and he had a cigarette, and he goes, first one to pull away is a bitch.
I picked up the bad habit of eating really fast. You had 20 seconds to eat your meal, and so you just shove it all in because you just wanted to get all the calories you could.
Yeah. How often do you think about and talk about sex when on deployment?
Hello everybody and welcome back to Shift Fire. It's good to be back with you. I am Israel Wright. With me as always,
Cameron Fath. Super excited because we have another episode of Interrogating Cam and Izzy.
We're gonna be doing a couple of questions about the military from you all, so be sure to leave a comment in the comment section. You might hear your question answered in a future episode. And if you like this video, be sure to follow the channel. Let's get started. All right, this question is from Dex T. If you could add anything to military training, what would it be?
Oh, people skills. People skills and social skills. You can teach war fighting, you can teach, how to shoot your weapon, how to be an amazing soldier, but what you can't teach these people are social skills and people skills. There's a big problem. You can be an amazing soldier, but a terrible person. And I think that's a big thing. One book I would recommend is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. If I could give every leader that book and say, read this and take notes, I would.
It's funny because in Special Forces, we did have kind of intercultural type training, things to look for. It was very mission specific. So we had stuff specific to like Iraq when we went over there and things like that. No, but I totally agree with you. Interpersonal conflict resolution, emotional intelligence, things like that. That I think would help the entire Army to communicate and to resolve conflicts within the Army and help us to be more of a cohesive force.
Yeah. Also fashion classes. Military are known for dressing like children.
I think it's kind of...
I would always teach my guys, battle drills? No, don't worry about that. Let's teach you how to dress. Because jeans with running shoes, it's not a move, man. This question comes to us from Cammy H. What are some weird, strange, or unusual habits you picked up while serving? Good question. Good question. That's gonna take some thought.
I can tell you that I didn't care much for anything outside of my military training. I was very focused on the military training. So when you would go to my apartment in North Carolina, there was no furniture. The TV was on top of the box that the TV came in. And I had maybe a couple blankets and pillows that I would sit on. There was no furniture in because I just didn't care because I was never there. I was always out at either Camp McCall or at Fort Bragg doing training at a class. We would spend most of our time there. So I just there was nothing in my apartment. It looked like nobody lived there. Or I was squatting. One thing that has changed after the military than before is I'm a lot more polite in general to strangers. Like I say yes sir and no sir and yes ma'am and no ma'am. And that's just because you were always meant to be addressing people in a respectful fashion when you're in the military. And so just in, kind of general social situations, that's kind of my default now.
Yeah, I think for me, it would be like punctuality. Well, before, being late wasn't a big deal to me.
Yes,
and now
backwards planning.
Yeah, backwards planning, like being super organized in the way I do things is, something before the military I wasn't. But I will try to be on time always, and I will get a little upset if someone isn't on time because I think that's disrespectful.
I picked up the bad habit of eating really fast.
Oh,
because I remember in basic training you had 20 seconds to eat your meal, and so you just shove it all in because you just wanted to get all the calories you could.
Yeah.
I have to stop myself. I'm like, I'm gonna chew 12 times before I swallow this.
That's another habit I picked up as well. I mean, at least all my friends were like, dude, you could be a professional eater now. Because I'm the only dude at the dinner table and everybody's just digging in, my plate's empty. And I'm just sorry. So how's your day? Don't talk with your mouth full though.
All right, this question is, how many war scars or battle wounds do you have? And what's the coolest story from them?
Man, I don't necessarily have bullet holes riddled in me where I drink a water bottle and all these water comes out of these holes. But a lot of training, burning the out of my arm on a barrel, doing a barrel change on a 240. The reason I have so many tattoos is because of all these scars I have.
Just covering up the scars?
Covering all these scars. And actually one in particular it's right here. There's 2 burn wounds here, and it's actually not from training, it's from a night in at the barracks. When my roommate, he loved to drink, and one day we were both drinking in the room when I was brand new, and he's like, let me see your arm. And he's like, you want to play a game? And I was like, sure, man, what do you want to play? And he's like, just put your arm out. And he put his arm like this. Well, if you put your arm out. Yeah, just like that. And we went like this, and he had a cigarette, and he goes, first one to pull away is a bitch. And he fucking drops a cig here, and he goes,
that sounds so fun.
Yeah, so of course we played the game numerous times. So I was like, okay, well now I have an excuse to get a tattoo to cover up all these cigarette burns.
Gee whiz. Man, thankfully I avoided that kind of trauma. Most of my stuff, like I have a little bit of a shoulder issue that comes back every once in a while, and I can remember the exact moment when it happened. That I had a bunch of equipment, or maybe it was ammo, and I was jumping down from a vehicle onto the ground, and that ka-chunk, I felt something move, and it's never quite been the same, ever since then. Just always constantly carrying heavy stuff. Yeah, that little bit of a click there, it's right in the joint there. I'm sure I'll be fine. All right, this question comes from Mike. What makes the transition back to civilian life difficult, and why is it so hard to tell firsthand accounts of why war is so hard?
Oh, great question, man. Biggest thing. A thing that makes, because this question, we can make an entire episode about this question.
Yeah, sure.
The biggest thing, in my opinion, is transitioning out. Is a lot of guys, especially the younger guys, in my shoes where I joined directly out of high school, you are, you lack life experience and you're given everything in the military. So the second you get out, you're given, 3 hots and a cot, you're given training, you're given structure, you're given guidance, you're given all the tools to succeed. And once you strip those tools away from someone, that's when it really makes, it's kind of like a reality check. Because when you get out of the military, you got to start paying your own bills. You got to start, nurturing relationships with your loved ones. You got to start making another plan. Because the biggest thing I found from especially dudes in special operations when they get out is they have such a sense of pride, like they're immortals, they're untouchable. And the second they get out, none of that means jack shit anymore to the normal person. So you're basically stepping down from like varsity to Pinto League, essentially, if you want to make that comparison. But I think that's extremely challenging. And as far as telling people war stories, I don't think that's that difficult to do, depending on the person.
Depending on the person.
Yeah.
Depending on what the experience was and who the person was.
Yeah, and it's all dependent on mindset. Like, how did you feel about it? Because I have friends that I lost, and it just depends on how you're able to deal with that in a positive way, and it all goes down to personal reflection, and I'm a big proponent of counseling and being able to talk about those things in an open setting and whatnot. So if you keep it all sucked in and it finds its way to the surface with no guidance or regulation, that's when shit goes f***ing south. But
it's interesting transitioning, like you were saying, out of the military into the civilian world, because you have such a focus and you have such a goal and you train at such a high level. And for me, the hardest thing has been like feeling that I've gotten like so soft and that I've lost a lot of those skills that I had that gave you such a sense of pride and such a sense of purpose. And then finding something like that in the civilian world that gives you that same kind of sense of community and pride and service is very difficult, because you can find it all in one place in the military.
It gives you fulfillment.
Yeah,
that's the hardest thing. It's like you're in an organization that gives you so much fulfillment, and then you leave and you feel empty because there's not that fulfillment anymore, and you have to go out and find it again. And a lot of people struggle with that. But it is out there. Let me tell you, it is definitely out there. You just got to find it and look for it and use what the military gave you to help you find that.
Yeah, transitioning those military skills and military mindset into the civilian world can be done, and actually, if you can do it successfully, you become an asset in whatever situation you find yourself in.
Absolutely. This question comes to us from Tommy A, and Tommy wonders, what are some of the best military jokes you've ever heard? Besides the Air Force, I can't really think of many jokes.
Oh, I got one. The Army says hua, the Marines say oorah, and the Air Force says room service.
Well, the only joke I can think of besides the Air Force is one about a ranger, an officer, and a Navy guy. All get captured by an Indian tribe. And the chief goes, "We are gonna kill you all and make your bodies into a canoe when you're dead. But you're allowed to pick the way you die." So the officer says, "Just hand me my sidearm with 1 round." And he gives him the sidearm, he shoots himself in the head. The airman says, "Just give me some poison and I'll take it, and that'll be the way I go." So he gets some poison, he takes it, he dies, done. The ranger says, "Just give me a fork." And the chief looks at him really strangely, hands him a fork, and the ranger starts stabbing himself profusely, saying, "F your canoe!"
That's very forward thinking. All right, this question is from Jennifer G. Question is, what's the funniest nickname you or someone had and the story behind it? The funniest nickname that I had was Hollywood.
That's my nickname.
That can't be your nickname. That's my nickname. Okay, is that just because you're from?
I think the military has a way of just, no matter where you're from in California.
Geographically,
if you're from California, they assume you're from Los Angeles and they assume you're a fairy, so they call you Hollywood.
They assume that you just know lots of celebrities?
Oh yeah,
or
they're like,
something
how many
that?
celebrities did you meet? And I was like, well, a couple, but
That's how it was for me. We were sitting in the airport in Georgia, getting ready for the bus to pick us up and take us down to basic training at Fort Benning. And all these dudes in my platoon were like really hyped to be in the military. And so they were giving, everybody's got to have a nickname in the military. Of
course.
And so, but they were doing the same kind of thing. Like there was a guy from Washington, D.C. and his name was D.C. There was a guy from Texas, his name was Tex. And there was a guy with red hair and his name was Red.
what is this, Zombieland, dude?
Yeah, the military is not, very clever, very original with their nickname, very creative. And so obviously I came out of LA MEPS, and so my name became Hollywood. And that was, everybody called me that. The drill instructors called me Hollywood. I have friends to this day that they know what my real name is, but they call me Hollywood because they've just been calling me Hollywood for like a decade.
Well, I knew a guy in my platoon that was deemed the nickname Air Monahan, and I thought it was so funny because the reason they called him that was because he would wear those really big, bulky, white, pretty much the dad shoes.
Oh.
You know, the dad shoes, and he would work out in these giant white, like barbecue dad master shoes, and he did a 5 mile in them one time, and they were the worst shoes ever. So they called him Air Monahan for like the longest time. So this question comes from Ryan E, and he wants to know, what's your favorite and least favorite food you've eaten while on tour? Well, I wasn't in a band or anything, but when
Tour duty.
when I was overseas, I can remember specifically in South Korea, there's a lot of exotic foods that they choose to eat in foreign lands. And I remember we go to this random restaurant because you can't read the signs because they're all in South Korean. And they put us in this really tiny loft upstairs, and we're sitting there, and it's kind of like Korean barbecue, so they have something in front of you burning. And there's a really good looking meal on like the sign, and we're all just like, yeah, we'll take some of that. And they're just like, oh, they said like the word for it. They're like, oh, okay. So they like bring us, and we're all eating it. And I'm like, this is really chewy. What is this? And then we're like trying to communicate with the waitress, and we're like, what is this? And she just goes,
Wait.
you're like,
Pig ribs.
intestines.
Pig intestines.
Pig intestines.
Oh,
And we were like, oh, ah. Yeah, luckily there was another guy on that trip that ended up eating a bull wiener.
A bull wiener?
A bull's wiener. Yeah, bull penis. And I'm just glad I wasn't that guy.
I like how you said the best part of that trip was that somebody else had something worse than you.
Oh yeah, no.
Like, oh, thank God.
Thank God that wasn't me, man.
Worse off than me. Yeah. The worst thing that I ever ate was the DFAC food. There was this one. There was this one facility on the base where I was at. There was like 2, and I never wanted to go to this one because everything, no matter what it was on the main line, that whether it was lobster or steak or fish, it all tasted just like salt. It was super salty. It all tasted the same, and I hated eating there. And I would go, if I went there, I wouldn't get the mainline stuff. I'd just go to the salad bar or the dessert bar or whatever because I'm not eating that because it all just tastes like salt.
Salt.
Yeah.
I talked about what was the worst thing, but some of the best stuff I had on deployment was we actually contracted a Syrian chef on our compound, and he would make us the most delicious meals that were like traditional Syrian meals. And like he used to give us these packets of what looked like semen, but it was just like garlic like paste spread that you put on top of it. It was so good, but everybody ended up getting massive diarrhea over there because yeah, I was the only person that didn't end up shitting their brains out from eating the food, which I take because I got a strong gut.
It's a pride.
I got a strong gut.
Strong constitution.
But yeah, that food was so good. They would bring us entire cooked goats with the head still on.
Whoa.
And like everybody would sit there, and we're sitting around with the locals, and they would just like pick with their hands, and we're just like,
I remember a lot of the local food in Iraq was actually really good. There would be meet and greets we would do to kind of go around to the local villages and stuff, and of course we would share a meal with them and drink some chai. But the best meal I had when I was in Iraq was actually my Thanksgiving meal. We went up north of where we were to the green zone where everything was kind of safe. Went to Dahuk. We went to a restaurant and we had kebab and falafel and
Yeah, it's good.
Oh, it was delicious. I still remember it obviously to this day. This question is from Alex B. If you could serve alongside one fictional character, who would it be and why? I love that question.
that's a great question. There's so many iconic characters that I would love to share a foxhole with. And
Yeah. The first one that comes to mind is Kratos from the God of War.
That's a good one.
The latest incarnation where he's like older and he's like a veteran, you know, he's grizzled, but he's got so much to teach his son, you know, and yeah, I love that. I feel like I could learn so much, and then we would fight awesome beasts together, you know, giant snakes and ancient gods together. That'd be awesome.
I think for me, fictional character, Captain Price from Call of Duty. That dude is so experienced. There's so much knowledge in that guy's head about military tactics and whatnot.
Yep.
Plus, he's done it all.
He's done it all.
From direct action raids to, you know, reconnaissance operations, the sniper operations, to unconventional warfare. That guy's done it all, and I feel like he's just a wealth of knowledge, and he could take me underneath his boonie cap and make me a better warrior.
You always feel like you know everything's gonna be all right if Captain Price is there.
Yeah. This one comes to us from Whitney B, and she wonders, what did you learn in the military that you most often use or implement on a daily basis? And what's a survival skill that you learned that you made sure you taught your son/daughter? That's a good question.
Situational awareness.
Yes.
That's a phrase that will always live with me for the rest of my life. Just being aware of your surroundings. It's drilled into you from basic all the way through the Q course and then beyond. It's just situational awareness, being aware of your surroundings at any given time, at any moment, and as things change, being aware of that.
Absolutely, that's a big one, and you stole my thunder, man. 'Cause that's the one I wanted to talk about. Because I mean, when I go to a restaurant or anything, I always sit facing the door. Because even though we're in like a civilized society, you never know what's gonna happen. Yeah, civilized. But yeah, situational awareness is a big one. Or even like going back into planning, and you're like utilizing like that 1/3, 2/3 rule that you do when you're constructing op orders, where it's like 1/3 of it is your actual plan and 2/3 is practicing the plan. But you know, something I always take is like time management, basically organizing my day in a very specific schedule. That way I know what I have to do, when I have to do it, and there's no questions otherwise. That's a big thing. But survival skills that I want to teach my youngins, you know, people ask me, do you have any kids? And I say, not that I know of. But if they're out there,
you're gonna get a lot of great content coming up.
Yeah,
so be sure to like and subscribe to this channel.
Absolutely. I think, you know, I don't want to teach them to be killers, because I will actually encourage my children to join the military, because I think it's a great great way to gain life experience.
If they wanted to, I would encourage them.
But I wouldn't, if they didn't want to, I'd be like, yo, cool, your life, kiddo, I'll support you wherever you want. But
it's not like they have to.
Yeah, definitely give them the tools. As far as people skills is a big thing, but then like situational awareness is a huge thing, especially growing up, and then because the world's a scary place.
Yeah, I would, if and when I should have little chitlins running around. Just a thirst for knowledge. That was one thing that the Army gave me, like planning things out. You know, there's always, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. You know, proper planning prevents piss poor performance. You know, I love that. It's just planning things out and being curious, asking yourself questions, having that rhythm or that framework by which you can gain knowledge and understanding, and then you can use that in whatever scenario that you're in. You know, proper planning prevents piss poor performance. That's the 6 P's.
The 6 P's.
Yeah, the proper planning prevents piss poor performance. Yeah.
This question is, how often do you think about and talk about sex when on deployment? There isn't a moment that goes by that we don't talk about sex or think about sex on deployment. That's why we have whack shacks. You know how many grown men have masturbated right where Israel is sitting next to me?
Not right here, but. You know.
And I'm perfectly okay with it. He puts his hand here, and he puts his hand here, and we just work it together. It's called teamwork.
Yeah, it's a very.
Well, that's why we do it in the Rangers, at least. I don't know how they do it in Special Forces.
Man, I'm so glad I wasn't in the Rangers. I mean, I'm a very private person, so I was not often involved in a lot of these guys. I mean, I was there, obviously, but I didn't have a lot to say at the time.
Oh, I'm young and fully about 24/7, so I had a lot to say about it.
Thank you so much, folks, for joining us on Shift Fire. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Interrogating Cam and Izzy.
If you guys like this video, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, go crazy in the comment sections. We want to know what you guys want to know about the military.
Be sure to hit that notification bell so you can get notified of future episodes coming up. Folks, we'll see you on the next one. All right, this question is from Mike F. Mike,
your face.
What makes the transition back to civilian?
What are some of the best military jokes you've ever heard? I think one joke's the Marine Corps.
They're a joke!
I should have said the Air Force.